What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you guys tuning in for another video. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. If you guys are new to the Juice series, welcome to the Juice. This series is presented by Fish USA. So if you're not familiar with Fish USA, they're a huge online tackle retailer. So they got everything you need for fishing, not just bass fishing, but everything you need for any sort of fishing. It's available at fishusa.com, and they got real fast shipping. They'll get it to you quick, fast, in a hurry, and get you out on the water with any tackle that you might need. So the Juice is my recap videos. We're going to dive in, and I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to be real. I'm going to show you everything that we used to catch some fish at my last tournament. So this one, we're talking about stage 6 on the Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour on the Potomac River. Now, things did not go my way, but that's just part of it. You know, I finished up 55th place, did not have the best tournament, but the Potomac River is a place where you're like that close from figuring it out and doing extremely well or having a bad tournament. I mean, the line is so thin, and I feel like we were right there. Just a couple things didn't go our way, and we ended up with a rough finish. So if you guys are ready, let's jump in, and I'll walk you through the whole setup, everything we used, rod, reel, line, equipment, tackle, patterns, all that good stuff coming up. Okay, so the Potomac River, man, it's a place that I'm very familiar with. You know, I've fished there a bunch, and sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing. You know, sometimes you can know too much about a place and end up running around trying to chase things. I'm not saying that's what happened to me, but I almost wish I had never been there before and approached it as a brand new fishery and just kind of broke down, you know, the current conditions and didn't have that past history in my head. But that's just an excuse. We just didn't catch them this week. Now, going through practice, we had an extreme heat wave. I mean, the feel-like temperatures were 110, 115 every day. The first day of practice was probably the hottest day I've ever fished in my entire life. I mean, it was so hot, and it was just ruthless. I mean, it didn't matter if you got in the shade, if you drove the boat around, it was just miserable, hot, sticky, sweaty. And it really spiked those water temperatures. So, you know, some of the water temperatures that I seen were upwards of 95 degrees, which is absolutely crazy. That is extremely warm water for the bass to be living in. But with that being said, a lot of those fish felt that heat wave, and they started migrating towards these backs of these creeks where there's fresh water running in, a little bit cooler water, maybe more oxygen in there. And that was really a predominant pattern throughout the entire tournament, you know, not just for me, but really for everybody, a lot of people. You know, there was a lot of fish that were migrating to the backs of these creeks looking for that cooler water. Now, I found a few of those areas in practice. I felt pretty good about those going into the tournament, and things just didn't quite work out. You know, I started in an area that I felt really good about, a lot of fish in it. Something had changed. I'm not really sure what had changed from the first day of practice to the first day of the tournament, but something had changed, and those fish did not want to cooperate with me. And I actually went the whole first period without getting a bite, and that really put me behind the 8-ball for the rest of the tournament. I was kind of chasing my tail the rest of the day, the rest of the tournament, really, to try and make up that ground, because at that point, you know, I was 15 pounds back of the cut line already right off the bat, and that kind of put me well behind, and I was really just chasing my tail the rest of the day trying to get in there. But we kind of salvaged the day in the back of a creek that I just talked about, but again, on that unfortunate timing, I got behind another angler, and he caught 22 fish in front of me, and I caught 7 behind him. So just one of those deals that thing goes down. But let's dive into the baits and patterns and stuff like that we use. So really, you know, I had a variety of rods on the deck. I was planning on hunkering down in a couple areas and just giving them lots of options. So, you know, I caught some fish on like a frog. You know, throughout practice, I caught them on all sorts of baits: frog, buzz bait, swim jig. You know, what else did we catch them on? But those were just kind of mix and match. You know, might pick up one here, one there. But the staples in my lineup were these guys right here. So first up, we'll start with this guy. This was probably the bait I threw the most, and it is a swimming worm. You know, this is actually the Yamamoto Speed Senko. And if you look at him, he may look a little funny, and that's because I actually cut him in half. Now this was a little tip that I got from one of the roommates this week. Jake Lawrence actually figured this out, that if you cut it down a little bit, make it a little bit smaller, he noticed he was getting some more bites. So I started doing that, and I caught me a few fish doing that as well. So this is the gooseberry laminate color. I think I have the package right here. I do. We got one left in there. So this is the 7-inch Speed Senko, but I was cutting the top half of him off. So if you guys can see the smooth spot or the egg sac, whatever you want to call that, right there, I was cutting him off right at the top of that and getting rid of this 2.5 inch portion of the worm, and then rigging him up like that. So it created a smaller profile and was able to get some more bites. Now what I really like about the Speed Senko versus other swimming worms is that tail is substantially bigger, and you can almost feel it thumping. You know, I was throwing this one on braided line. We'll get to that here in a second, but I could feel that bait thumping a lot harder than other swimming style worms. And I really like that, you know, adding that little vibration in the water, but not really making any noise. You know, it's just a swimming worm. So that was something that, you know, I was just swimming around, whether it's shallow grass, hydrilla, pads, stuff like that, just swimming him around. And those fish were really biting the swim worm. A lot of fish got caught on a swim worm throughout the week. But for me, I really like the Speed Senko. So I threw this guy that I just showed you, the gooseberry laminate color. And then if the water was a little bit cleaner, different conditions, I went with this one, which is Green Pumpkin Magic. That's one of my favorite colors. It's just green pumpkin with a silver or gold fleck in there, something to flash a little bit. And that was the other option that I gave them in the Speed Senko. So that was probably my main setup for just kind of covering water. You know, if there was submerged grass, lily pads, reeds, marshy stuff, and I just wanted to cast and wind and cover water, I was picking this guy up right here. So throwing it on a Trocar TK105. So that's the Pro V worm hook right there. You guys seen me use that hook all the time. That's my favorite worm hook right there. So this is actually the 4/0 size. So it's a little bit bigger hook for this worm, but I wanted a little bit bigger hook and a little bit heavier gauge hook because I'm throwing it on braid. So I have a 1/8 ounce Epic tungsten worm weight right there pegged on there. And then I have it on 40-pound Seaguar Tactics braid. This is my favorite braid for casting and winding like this through vegetation, that Tactics braid. It's a little bit rougher feeling than some other braids, and it really cuts through that vegetation extremely well. So I really like that Tactics braid right there. And then we were throwing it on a 7'3" heavy rod, but we can't talk about those rods just yet. A little sneak peek for you guys. So that was the swim worm right there. Next up, we had a chatterbait. Obviously, you guys know I love throwing a chatterbait around. This is just a 3/8 ounce jackhammer, 3-inch Senko on the back. And this was for a little bit deeper submerged grass. You know, I wanted that grass under the surface, but in a little bit deeper water, you know, maybe a ditch, maybe the outside edge, something like that. So I went with the 3/8. We're fishing fairly shallow. I'd say 2 to 4 feet is where I was throwing the chatterbait, and throwing him on 15-pound Seaguar Invisex fluorocarbon. And then I was throwing him on actually a Phoenix rod. It's a 7'4", medium heavy. It's just a rod I've been playing with a little bit here lately. And I really liked him for this lighter chatterbait especially, you know, because he was, you know, I was making fairly short cast at some points. And, you know, I wanted that little bit lighter as far as lighter action on that for, you know, that lighter chatterbait, throwing him around. So those were my two moving baits that caught the majority of the fish. Like I said before, I caught some on a frog, a buzz bait, a swim jig, things like that. But those two baits were the primary source of my moving baits. And then we get to the tried and true Senko. So this is what I caught the majority of my fish on day one. Day two, I don't think I caught as many on the Senko, but this is what I was throwing once I got back into those smaller creeks. You know, it starts narrowing down, the tide's pulling out, so all those fish kind of congregate to the middle of those creeks, and I was just taking a Senko. So this is a 5-inch Senko. Let's see what we got. I was throwing two colors. I had another one rigged up on the deck as well, but he's still in the deck. Those are all empty packages. You can see we went through a few of those, but also 5-inch Senko gooseberry laminate. You know, I love that color right there, gooseberry. It's just a very, it's a dark purplish color, and it's something that just always gets me bites, especially on the Potomac River or any fishery like that. Now, you might think I'd been throwing them on a wacky style, but I also went with more of a Texas rigged worm hook on the Senko because I was throwing them fairly close to heavy cover, heavy grass, lily pads, stuff like that. So I went with this hook here, and it actually gives it a different action. So this is that same hook, the Trocar TK105. This is the 3/0 size. So I went with a little bit smaller for the 5-inch Senko, and rigging him up weightless Texas style, it gives him a different action. So especially when that current is pulling him out, you can almost twitch him and he darts side to side, almost like a fluke style bait, and then shimmies down. So, you know, I caught a lot of fish on him the first day, and I don't think I caught any on him the second day, but really, you know, my saving grace of the tournament the first day, catching a few big fish, some quality fish, good fish for heavy hitters, all came on the Senko. So I was throwing him, and then I was also throwing this guy right here. This package is almost gone. We almost went through all these. This is also the 5-inch Senko, but this is Becker's Black Magic. So this is only available at Fish USA. This is an exclusive color at Fish USA. It is a black and blue with silver flake. So I would throw this when I'm looking to get that little bit of flash. You know, little bit cleaner water, I would go with the gooseberry. A little bit dirtier, I'd say a little bit more stained water, I would go with the Becker's Black Magic, looking for that little bit of flash involved in my Senko. Now, we talked about the hook, the line, 12-pound Seaguar Tatsu fluorocarbon for my leader. Then we run it down to an FG knot to my Seaguar PEX8 braided line. That's the 18-pound braided line to the 12-pound Tatsu leader. And then we got a 7'3" medium heavy spinning rod, but we also can't talk about that just yet either. But that's it, guys. That was the juice. That obviously it didn't lead to the best tournament finish, but I felt like my tackle was pretty dialed in, and you know, like I said, I felt like I made good decisions. Just a couple unfortunate things happened, and it led to a bad finish in the event. But it is what it is. On to the next one. So appreciate you guys tuning in to the juice. If you guys are new to the channel, like I said, make sure you hit the subscribe button, but please leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next time.